Hi, my name is Flip Awesome Aguilera, and welcome to WEYT, the show where I find interesting people just like you and discover what's going on between their ears. Now, let's get to know one another. What's good, everybody, and welcome to another episode of WEYT. Flip Awesome Aguilera here, and I'd like to start this episode with letting you know that I'm a failure. How is it that I'm a failure? When I started this podcast, I wanted to release it every week. And towards the end of the year, I kept slacking and procrastinating on that. And here I am at the beginning of 2021. We are almost towards the end of January, and here's the first episode of the year. So this is how I'm kicking off 2021, letting you all know that I'm a failure. And I want you to hold me accountable to that. I said I was going to do something, and I didn't. Now, what can I do moving on to try to rectify, be a little bit better? So what I think I'm going to do is, for this year, I'm going to try to dial it back, and I'm going to try to do one episode a month. And I want to release it on the 13th of every month, just because I love bucking the trends, and everybody thinks that 13 is an unlucky number. So I'm going to make it the number that I'm going to peg myself to so that luck comes my way. How was 2020? How was 2020 for me? Last year, my 2020 word of the year was prioritization. So how did I do with that? At the top, I had said that I wanted to prioritize my mind and body. I do think that I've done that pretty well, being that that is what I do for a living. I'm constantly trying to feed my mind with things that enlighten me, teach me how to be a better representative of myself in this world, so that I can reverberate that same energy out into the universe, into clients, into the people that I interact with. So I do think I did pretty okay with that. I'm constantly trying to prioritize how to grow my business, which with the pandemic, I definitely took a big hit with my business, which obviously means financially. But with that, there's still so much that I have to be grateful for. The 5-year plan that my wife Maritza and I had finally came to a culmination as we moved to Colorado. We bought a home, and we were saving for all that. Now that we're here, the amount of finances that I was making before are not the same. The universe has thrown an obstacle in the way that we need to overcome. And part of the way I try to look at things is I try to wonder, why are things happening for me? Not why did this happen to me, because it's very easy to get into that mindset of, oh, well, there's a pandemic and I'm not making as much money as I used to. And, the world sucks. And this is a closed state. And I wish I lived in an open state. And why did I even move to begin? There's so many stories that you can begin to tell yourself about why things aren't going the way that you would like them to. The thing with that is that I find that to be a practice that I don't want to get better at, if you know what I mean. That is not a practice I want to get better. I don't want to get better at telling myself a story and making excuses as to why things aren't happening the way I want them to. I want to create a practice of, okay, this is what's going on. How am I going to overcome that? What's the step I can take right now to get me closer to where I do want to be? Because thinking the other way is probably not going to get me any closer, but thinking this way probably will. There's a difference, and I wrote down something here between the word inaction and inaction. And I want to thank my brother from another mother, Dynamo, for the discussion we had that made me even think of this. We brought up somebody like Post Malone, Jimi Hendrix. I don't know these people personally, but Jimi Hendrix died young. And I don't think when Jimi Hendrix started playing the guitar that he thought to himself, I'm going to be one of the greatest guitar players that the world has ever known. I don't think that is what happened. What I believe is that Jimi Hendrix was in action, and something that he loved and believed in so much that it skyrocketed him to where he is in the story of pop culture, where if you are in inaction, which means a lack of action, not much is going to happen to you. Actually, lots of things are going to happen to you. They're just things that, again, they will happen to you, not for you. Where in our example of Jimi Hendrix, who was always in action with his guitar, it catapulted him to a new place. So one of the seeds I want to plant for myself and for all of you out there is, how can you be in action with something that you love and believe? And take a minute to write whatever that is out, because getting things out of your head is the first action that you can take so that you can be in action towards creating the life that you want. So how am I going to create the life that I want moving forward from this point? Because I'm already living the life that I want. I'm in Colorado. I look out my window over here. I see beautiful mountains. You know, it's a little colder than I would like. Something I would like to create for myself in the future is maybe being in a place where there's mountain and ocean, because I do love and miss the oceans from Florida, and where maybe it's 70 degrees more often than not. That would be pretty cool. But for now, I'm going to enjoy where I am. I'm going to be grateful for the things that we've been able to create for ourselves. And again, I really have to put out there how grateful I am for my wife, because if it wasn't for her, my wife Maritza, if it wasn't for her, we would not be here. Really, if I'm going to be honest, it wasn't just because I was like, oh, this is what's going to happen. This has been our 5-year plan, but she's the one who, especially towards the end of making it a reality, had to put this vision on her back and say, this is what's happening, at the expense of herself. Because, you know, in all honesty, she's working at a place she doesn't really care to work at. And the longer that I am not in the financial place that I would like to be, the longer she has to deal with that. And I'm a big fan of, you shouldn't be in a place that you feel is sucking your soul because of money, right? And lots of us may find or may have found ourselves in that position where we are in a place because we feel comfortable enough, because we're making just enough money. But what we don't realize is that going to a place that you dislike every day and dealing with people that you dislike every day is a stress. And that stress is going to begin to affect your life more and more, and it's going to compound more and more until you find yourself in a state of dis-ease, right? What's your life like when you are in a state of dis-ease? It's usually not easier. It usually starts getting harder in different ways. Your health starts to fail. You get sicker more often. Your mood is bad. You don't sleep as well. All these other repercussions that a lot of us may have, you know, feel that we have to deal with because we need to make money, right? Again, I have to thank my wife. I need to keep taking action so that we can get her to the point where she doesn't have to be in that place anymore. So that's one of my goals for 2021, is growing my business enough to the point where if she wants to look for something else and do something else, she can do that. With that, I'm going to ask you your help. And that is, if you feel that any of these messages that I'm speaking about today resonate with you, schedule a call with me. Let's have a one-on-one. Let's find out if we can create value for each other. At the end of the day, that's the action I want to be in, is creating value for you out there so that we can make this world a better place. We need to make our world a better place. And another word I have here is apart versus a part. I hear a lot of people talking sometimes, or I've been in discussions and conversations where people are like, you know, humans suck and humans, we do things that are unnatural. And I'm like, okay, what do you mean by that? So yes, maybe we've created plastic, but how do we know that nature did not want to create plastic? Because we are not separate from nature. So in other words, we are not a part of nature. We are a part of nature. And another thing I'd like to put out there is for us to think, or have the audacity to think, that we understand what the universe as a whole, or what the source, what God as a whole wants to do, is ludicrous. And I'm going to explain to you why. You know how it is that we can see colors, and look at all these beautiful colors behind me. We can see what is called Roy G. Biv, which is red, orange, yellow, Roy, green, G, blue, indigo, which is a different word for purple, and violet. It's just kind of, those are the colors that we can see. Roy G. Biv. We can only see inside the spectrum of those colors. Every color that we know is a mixture of all those colors. Cats can see ultraviolet. We can't see ultraviolet. So again, we are stuck in the spectrum that we are, restricted by, which is just here. Other animals can see different things, different parts of the spectrum, which gives them a different type of intelligence that we don't possess. We possess the intelligence that we possess within this spectrum. So our brain works the same way. Our brain works within a spectrum. Now, all around this spectrum is infinity, all around it. But we are only privy with our brains to this. We can only understand this. Once you come to that realization, and this is my perspective, I could be right or wrong. I'd love to hear your perspectives on it and give me a different way of looking at it. But once you realize that our spectrum can only work within these parameters and that there's infinity all around it, you begin to realize that the universe is not here for you to understand it. The universe is under no obligation for you to understand it. And once you have that in mind, what do you do? What perspective do you take from there? The perspective I take is that's even more reason to be present. That's even more reason to be grateful for what we do have, because the opposite is you have nothing. My 2021 word of the year is expansion. And what is it that I would like to expand on? At the top, I need to expand my finances, my business, and my career this year. So 2021 will be focused on expanding that. That's what I have at the pinnacle, because I usually put things in triangles, right? I like the triangle where you have a nice foundation at the bottom, but there's this top goal that you're trying to reach. So this year will be an expansion of finances, business, and career. And the way I'm trying to do that, the goal that I have for myself is I would like to have 8 clients, consistent clients here in Colorado Springs. I have about 2 or 3 that are still back in Miami, and I am extremely grateful for all of you that have continued to work with me through all the obstacles of a pandemic and all that other stuff. But I would like 8 clients here in the Colorado Springs area that are, under the SweatNation world. I'm working through that through, having one-on-ones, going to networking meetings, just meeting people and letting them know what it is that I do, giving them assessments so that they know or have a better idea of what their body is telling them that it needs. On the left-hand side of my triangle, I have relationships, and I'm constantly working on my relationship with myself, because if I don't have a relationship with myself, if I don't have a good relationship with myself, there's no way I can have a good relationship with anybody else. And if I had a bad relationship with myself and I faked it, people would know, people would figure that out after a while. So I start with myself. And what do I do for myself? I exercise, which is on the other side of my triangle. It's my mind and body. So, relationships, mind and body on opposite ends of the triangle, but they're still at the same level, which is at the foundational level. Because if my mind and body are good, that can reverberate through my life, through my relationships. But one of the things I know I need to constantly be working on is empathy. I need to be more empathetic. I need to work on listening more. These are the things that I know I really need to focus on and get better and communicate more without trying to prove a point. Or, I can communicate and try to have other people come to their conclusions with what I'm saying and express that back to me so that I can understand how it is I'm communicating. But to try to prove a point or to try to be right, that is not something that I have any desire to try to do anymore. I was way more like that when I was younger, but that is not what I want to do anymore. So now back to the finances, business, and career, something that I've picked up, and I would like to thank the Valente brothers from Miami for giving me the opportunity to a study group over here. And, I really look up to these 3 men from Miami or from Brazil, but that reside in Miami because of the way that they choose to teach this martial art of jiu-jitsu. You know, they don't lead with learning jiu-jitsu to fight people. Yes, that is something that you learn, but how they lead is learning jiu-jitsu as a way of living a good life, of being a good person. You know, they have this 753 code that have words like rectitude and benevolence and, you know, just how to treat yourself well so that, again, you can reverberate that good feeling out into the world and make the world a better place. So I do appreciate them giving me the opportunity to teach the system that they've created over here in Colorado Springs. So I will be starting the Colorado Springs Valente Brothers study group, and I do already have 2 or 3 students that I've started with here in this area, and so far I'm getting really good feedback from them, and I want to grow that to the point where I teach 4 students for 4 hours every day. So not those same 4 students, but I would like 4 students every hour for 4 hours throughout the day. So that's my goal with the whole jujitsu part, which, if you really think about it, isn't just an extension of movement. So it's very much a part of the SweatNation philosophy of, you know, moving better, breathing better, learning how to have the tools to defend yourself better. So these are all things that fall under what it is I'm already doing. Those are my goals for 2021. Those are the ones that I really want to focus on, is getting those clients, getting the jiu-jitsu more consistent, getting a few more students, just building my reputation here in this Colorado Springs area. 2 other things that I've done, which are a little bit on the side, but nevertheless are 2 things that will help me, I think, reach those goals, is I've started 2 discussion groups here. One of them is the Colorado Springs Philosophy Discussion Group. I just love discussing topics. You know, this next month's topic is going to be monogamy and non-monogamy, relationships in the 21st century. With everything that's going on, the March discussion topic will be about censorship and what private companies versus the government's role is in censorship, because I like to talk about the things that are going on in the world. We need to speak about things. Living in this country, the United States, our First Amendment is the freedom of speech. If we don't exercise that, then the Second Amendment becomes the default, which means guns will start to come out. So let's keep working on protecting that First Amendment and letting people, allow them to speak if you agree with them or not. Because once you silence people, anger will begin to compound until something comes to a head. So another thing that I said, another group that I started is Axen. And I'd like to thank Dynamo, who is the creator of Axen in Miami, for allowing me to, again, expand and have that club here in Colorado Springs. And Axen is spelled AXEN, and it's a play on words on action and Zen. And why these 2 concepts are important is that you need to take action. Again, you need to be in action, but then you need to take the time to breathe and reflect on the action that you took. Because if you just take action after action after action with no contemplation, with no thought, with no Zen and no breath attached to it, you're just going to spiral out of control into this action. That's where we've created the word Axen, AXEN. And it's basically a goal setting brainstorming group where we come together, we talk about the goals that we have for our lives, and we use the power of group and network to help each other reach our goals. So that is something else that I've started here in the Colorado Springs community. Now, the philosophy group I've been doing online. So if you are not in Colorado Springs and you are interested in coming to the meetings, by all means, you can. We have a meetup group. It's the Colorado Springs Philosophy Discussion Group. We have a Facebook group, Colorado Springs Philosophy Discussion Group. You can join those groups, and we put the link out. The meeting is once a month. I think it's around the first Monday of every month. It might switch every now and again, depending on the other activities I may have, but we're going to try to keep that very consistent first Monday of the month. The Axen, which is why it might switch sometimes, it's every other Monday. And if it's on a first Monday, I may have to move the philosophy group to the next Monday. But again, we will try to be very consistent in having these groups so that we can all, again, exercise our First Amendment right to be able to speak and be heard, and also come together to help each other build the life that we are trying to manifest for ourselves through Axen. Another thing that's really been engaging my mind lately, and that's what this podcast is what's engaging your thoughts. So what's been engaging my thoughts is I've gone down the rabbit hole of cryptocurrencies. And here in the beginning of 2021, I will say that I am going to be an adopter of the crypto world because basically because of the laws of physics. We can't escape them. And the more I look at the way the monetary policies are going, not only here, but around the world, the second law of thermodynamics is that entropy will have its way at some point. And entropy basically means chaos, that disorganization is always happening. Now, for those of you out there that only like to focus on the second law of thermodynamics and think, oh, you see, everything is chaos, everything is falling apart. The only way that things can fall apart is if they're organized first, right? So let that sink in. The only way that things can fall apart is if they're organized first, which means if entropy is always coming, that means organization has had to be there before it. And that will always be the case. Things need to be organized before they can be disorganized, so that they can organize again, so that they can disorganize again. It's basically the yin and yang, right? For every action, there's an opposite or equal reaction. The laws of physics are very persistent through everything we do because we are physical creatures. So our monetary systems fall under those same laws of physics. And right now, the more that we continue to print money around the world, the more entropy that money begins to accumulate, which means more disorganization. And the more disorganized we are monetarily, the more chaos will come, where cryptocurrency kind of takes away that whole thing because it's a closed system where what's going on. There's no inflation, there's no deflation. Not that those things can't happen outside of that system, but the system itself is sound. And if you'd like to really dig into some of this stuff, I've been looking at Michael Saylor, and that's Saylor, Saylor. He's gone very deep into why he thinks these cyclical patterns of organization and disorganization are happening, and what part we're living through right now. Another person out there that I've been following is Lynn Alden, very intelligent. She really brings it from, yeah, and they all bring it from the scientific mathematical graphs and all this stuff. But, I like the way she communicates. I've also been watching Raul Paul of Real Vision, and I have our friend who is going to be on the next episode of WEYT, Align, who I don't want to say he's an expert, but he's been in this slice of the pie of crypto for many, many years now. And he also had a podcast about it many years ago, and he hasn't lost interest in it. If anything, he's actually had more. He doesn't have the podcast anymore, but he's a very interesting person that I had the pleasure and privilege of speaking to. And again, very grateful to have people like that in my life. So keep your attention open for when that gets released very soon, probably February 13th. Buy some Bitcoin, help your life out, because every time they print money, the supply goes up, the value goes down. And right now, the value of Bitcoin is only going up. If I can give you just a little outsiders tip on that, get yourself some crypto so that you can hedge against any chaos that may be happening in our monetary systems. So that's been engaging my thoughts lately. We got a puppy. We have Gypsy, the puppy. If you go to my wife's page, you'll see lots and lots and lots of pictures of her. It's been interesting training her, right? Because we're training her, and we are trying to train her mindfully. We tried to do a lot of positive reinforcement, and of course, she's made a lot of mistakes. She's a puppy; she doesn't know things, but we could get angry every time she makes a mistake, or we could just be like, "Oh, you made a mistake. That's not cool." But then when she does the things that we like, we give her lots of love, lots of treats. Realize that I started with lots of love first before the treats, because that is the greatest treat. Something else that has actually been engaging my mind and bringing up the love is, I'm a part of the Esther Perel discussion group. And when I made my first episode on releasing weight, I brought up Esther Perel because she's one of the resources that I really go to when it comes to relationships in the modern world. And after listening to one of her podcasts, I decided that if I was going to be a poet or a rapper, that my rapper poet name would be L.I.A.R. And it would be an acronym, because people think liar. What do you think? What are you lying about? And it's not that I'm lying, it's that it's an acronym. So L.I.A.R. And the acronym stands for Love is a Risk. So I would be L.I.A.R. And in reading the posts that are in that group, I often see that, people don't really understand that risk means that there's going to be some pain involved. There's going to be some hurt involved. There's going to be some laughter involved. There's going to be some crying involved. There's going to be anger involved. There's going to be, because risk comes with all these things. And I've noticed some people try to opt out of that risk. But in opting out of that risk, you basically cut yourself off from everybody, and you just build a wall around yourself because you have a low risk tolerance and you don't want to run the risk of being hurt. That is a way one can live a life, but I'd like to ask you, is that the way you'd like to live your life? There is no right or wrong answer to that. You're allowed to do whatever you want. But I'd like to just plant that thought in your head for you to mull it around and ask yourself, is love worth the risk? And with that, I think I'm going to bring this episode to an end. So, you can find, like always, more episodes of WEYT. And remember, that's WEYT for What's Engaging Your Thoughts on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, all the places. And I'd really love for you to engage with me and share with me what's engaging your thoughts. Reach out to me if you'd like to schedule any time with me one-on-one, find out, if you're breathing okay, if your movement is okay, anything I can be of value of, just shoot me an email at weytshow@gmail.com. And with that, I like to end it the way we always end it. And that is, time and attention is the most valuable gift we can give to each other. So this is Flip Awesome Aguilera, MC L.I.A.R, wishing you more peace, love, and smiles.